Hi, this is Mark Meyer from MarTech Hero. In this video, I'm going to show you how to find some undocumented API endpoints for Eloqua. Now, what do I mean by an undocumented API? So, like all companies, Oracle supplies the documentation, the API documentation for Eloqua. So if we go into the documentation, we can go scroll through the REST APIs and we can see all the different endpoints that they have: context segments, custom objects, forms, etc., etc. But if you use Eloqua, you might run into situations in which you need to pull some data or do something, and you cannot find the documented API to do it. So you might think it can't be done, but there is a way around this, and it's just a matter of finding the so-called, quote, undocumented APIs. So how do we do that? Let's jump back over to Eloqua. And I'm just going to pull up an example of something that I know is not documented. Let's go to email setup and signature rules. So a lot of these component library things are not in the API endpoints. For example, signature rules not in there and signature layout. But as you can see, there's a long list of signature rules and a long list of signature layouts. So how would we pull this via the API when it's undocumented according to the API official documentation? To do that, I'm in Chrome right now. So I'm going to go up here to these little dots, and I'm going to select that. Then I'm going to select More Tools, and then Developer Tools. This opens the Chrome Developer Tools box or window. And what we're going to want to do up here in these tabs, we want to select Network. And then over here, we want to select Fetch XHR. We're going to select that. Now, if I go back and I click Signature Rule to pull up a list of all the signature rules, you're going to see over here in the right, this little line item showed up. So I'm going to click on this. And right here, it says there's a GET request made to get this list of signature rules. And this is the URL right here. So right there, that's the API call to get the list of signature rules. And we can test this out in Postman. Let me pull up Postman over here. And if you're not familiar with Postman in its use with Eloqua, I do have another video out here in the MarTech Hero channel that explains exactly how to use this and set it up. But I'm going to post this API call that I just copied, and I'm going to test it. And sure enough, that API call returned all the signature rules. So if I scroll all the way to the bottom, it looks like the last one's something called Analytics Lab. So let's go back to, and if I scroll down here, there it is. So you can see that pulled all of them. So right there, this is the so-called undocumented API. Also, likewise, if I hit signature layout, you'll see over here it just keeps adding to the list. Every time I click something, this list will just keep getting longer. So right here, I just added this one. So this is the API call to get all of the layouts, which also is undocumented according to the official API documents from Eloqua. And there's a lot of other things you could do with this as well. For example, let me go back to the home screen of Eloqua. Let's go to segments. And I have this test segment. Okay, right here it says the segment has 778 contacts. And what you might already know is these segments are only refreshed automatically daily by the system, by Eloqua. So if I had an API request call, in fact, let me show you which one I'm talking about here. This retrieve a segment. So this API call returns a count of how many people are in this particular segment. And the segment is 12453. So if I copy that API call, I'm going to jump back over to Postman. So in Postman, I'm going to copy that URL endpoint and then type in that segment ID 12453. You'll see right here it has a count of 778. That's what it's returning. And the reason it's returning that is because the last time this was refreshed, that's how many contacts were in there. However, if I hit this automatic refresh button or force it to refresh, there's actually 779 contacts. So why wasn't that pulled in when I did the API call in the segment? It's because there's actually another undocumented API call that is in charge of refreshing this count. So how do we find that? So if I go back up to our menu and more tools, once again, developer tools. And then once again, we want the network and we want to fetch XHR. And then I'm going to hit this refresh button again to see what calls it's making to Eloqua when we do this. And there it goes. It's making the calls. Okay, it's refreshed. And we'll look. And the first thing it did was this call right here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy it into a notepad just so it's a little easier to see. So what this call did, it says assets context segment Q, and then 12453. That's just our segment ID right there. But what this right here does is it automatically refreshes our segment. So if you ever have an API call in which you're trying to pull a segment from the API call and you're wondering why the segment's always returning the same count and it's only refreshed daily, the reason is because it's not, your API call is not doing this first. And the reason it's not doing this first is because it's undocumented, so you probably didn't even know it existed. So how you would use this, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to jump back over to Postman. I'm going to paste it in. And then this is actually, if I jump back to Eloqua, where it was actually, we see what was done, you can see that the request method was post. So if I change this to post, it doesn't, the results doesn't show you much, but basically what it did, it just refreshed that segment. So that's just another example of how you could find an undocumented API that might help you. So if you go back to the API document and you look through here and you can't find how to pull something, you could just come back and actually do it in the UI and just see via this developer tool what exactly is Eloqua doing, and then you can just copy the API call from there and use it that way. So in this example, I used Chrome developer tools. However, you can do this in Firefox too. This is Firefox. Same kind of thing. You go up to this menu, more tools, web developer tools. And then in this one, we could select network. In this XHR, again, we don't need this HTML. And then if I select something, you'll see once again, you'll see right here, same thing. It's posting the data. So that's just a nice little trick. So of course, this example is just showing you Eloqua because I'm familiar with Eloqua and the APIs, but this actually works for other sites too. If you have the API documents from a certain company and there's certain things you can't do for some reason, oftentimes you can go in and find the undocumented APIs this way and it'll work for you. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment and I'll be glad to help you out. Thanks a lot for watching.